Hello, friends. Welcome to Logistics of Logistics Podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is tech-driven drayage, a PortPro perspective with my friend Corey Abbott. How's it going, Corey?
Hi, Joe. It's going great.
So, Corey, please tell us a little bit about PortPro.
Yeah, so PortPro is a leading drayage technology company, and we have a deep expertise in containerized freight. We help drayage trucking companies, brokers, BCOs streamline their business, no matter whether it's rail, ocean, drayage, and any part of that supply chain.
Very nice. What do you do over there?
My job is the growth department. So I'm the chief growth officer. My team focuses primarily on what we'd call enterprise initiatives. So what's an enterprise initiative? Think fintech, AI platforms, large customers, things that we could apply across multiple enterprises to benefit our customers and the network as a whole.
Am I right to say that PortPro is similar to, it's a TMS, but it's specialized for the drayage side?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is correct.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of people listening go, oh, yeah, we do drayage. We just use our regular TMS. And we'll talk about some of the challenges of that. But I didn't realize until I came across you guys that anyone had a specialized technology just for drayage. And you educated me before we hit the record button. So look forward to talking about it more. It's an area that is often overlooked. When we talk about the big brokerages or the big trucking companies, we're always talking about over the road, and that's fine because it's probably a tremendous volume. But the challenge we have with our supply chains is we can't have any dead zones. We're all looking for more data, more insights, more speed, more efficiency. You can't have an area, and I know during COVID we all noticed this, that we had visibility until it got to the port or a mile from the port. And then I guess we had visibility of our trailers and our freight not moving, containers not moving. Well, if you can give me 3, 4, 5, 10 data points that I don't have right now in my supply chain, it's very valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we think about tracking differences between maybe a over-the-road TMS and a drayage TMS, right? Tracking something coming over the water, how long it's in the port, is it available in the port, right? When does it have to empty to return to come back? When's an export need to be back to get onto the ship? All of these are things that you wouldn't typically see in a over-the-road TMS, right? That's a difference in the drayage industry.
Yep. So tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you joined PortPro, and why did you join PortPro?
Sure. Yeah, so I grew up in North Carolina area. I'm still here. I'm in Charlotte, and everyone else is moving down here from up north, so I'm just going to stay here. And I actually went to school locally here in North Carolina, and I got a master's in accounting, which obviously then moved into IT and transportation, so it didn't really serve me all too well, maybe. So that's been quite a ride. So I actually started in the transportation and technology when I started working at XPO. So about 10, 12 years ago, I moved in and started working at XPO. At that point, we were about $250 million. And we rode up to, I think, 17 billion, and then we broke it back down. And I left and was the chief information officer then at STG when we sold our drayage and intermodal business there. So I spent a couple years there. And then throughout that process, building TMSs, building drayage TMSs for ourselves, and then found PortPro, started working with them and made the move over. And what I love about PortPro is that they're committed to solving drayage problems. It's a tough industry, right? It's a lot of data points, a lot of flow, getting containers moved into the right places, and they're focused on doing the right things and solving the problems with technology. And it's a part of the supply chain that's honestly just been underserved from that perspective. And it's exciting to get to tackle the problems. I think sometimes people think that just because there wasn't technology, it's easy to put it in, but it's actually very difficult. And it's probably why it doesn't exist fully. Solving some of these problems and coming in and out of ports, terminals, rails are difficult. And so we're focused and committed to doing it for our customers.
Yeah, you've been there, done that with your career. XPO was a rocket ship, and it was STG. It's interesting. So just to clarify, you guys make technology for companies that do drayage, whether it's a carrier or a broker, or do you actually also work with shippers?
Yeah, we even work with BCOs. We have
What is a
multiple
BCO for people
BC.
who don't do it every day?
Yeah. So your actual Targets, Walmarts, the actual commodity owner or vendor. So we even have if some BCOs that manage their own supply chain and get their own goods in and out of the port and moved around use PortPro as well. So anybody that is managing a fleet that is doing drayage, we're here to work with you.
I like it. I like it. And so the reason you say BCO is because they are not necessarily the shipper, they're the receiver. So they
Exactly.
might be import of record. So somebody shipped it from Vietnam or Europe or China and it came over the ocean, and there might be the BCO. They might have been, they're going to receive the goods and they might say, we need. So I hope you can give us a little lesson in drayage today. So could you describe the process? So we have containerized freight, moves over the ocean, and it gets to a port. It's taken off the boat. Walk us through from that point until it hits a warehouse somewhere.
Yeah, there's multiple ways that's going to happen, right? So let's say a ship's coming across the ocean. You're actually going to start being able to track that ship's progress and its estimated time of dock, right? Then the container comes off to that ship, but it's not available yet. So then it becomes available. And once it's available, you can go pick that container up and then bring it back to, if you're a shipper, perhaps your own yard till the customer needs it for delivery, perhaps directly to the customer's BCO's warehouse to unload, or perhaps to another warehouse to transload it out of a 40-foot container into a 53-foot container to go across the rail, or into an over-the-road truck to drive across. And then the 40-foot ocean container would be empty and brought back to the port to then go back across, or used as an export to export goods back across the ocean.
So the drayage companies, usually smaller trucking companies, they specialize in it and they move stuff from the port to local warehouses. And if we're talking about California, Long Beach, LA, I think they call that whole area Inland Empire, just tons of warehousing. They might move that container and the dray company just might drop it off. And as to your point, they might, at that point, somebody opens it up and says, hey, we're going to empty this out and put it on 6 trucks to go to 6 different distribution centers across the country. Or the drayage company might say, we took it right to a railhead and put it on a train. And then it goes to somewhere out east. And the same process happens. So the drayage companies, again, are a little smaller companies usually. I think when we talk about drayage companies, we're typically talking about mom and pop companies, but that's changing. There are some bigger companies now. What percentage of that business is smaller companies versus big boys?
Okay, generally, the number we use is that there's 80% that's going to be more regional or small SMB, small business, and then 20% of the big players. I was at STG, right? We a huge player in the space of truck count. But so about 20% is the large players, but then 80% is still going to be more regionally managed small business owned.
Yep. There's some compelling reasons why we're seeing some consolidation, I think, because the supply chains are much more demanding. If there is labor strife on the West Coast, you might say, move my shipments into the East Coast somewhere. If you do that, you don't want to have to go get a new drayage company. You just want to say, I'm working with Corey. I want to continue to work with Corey and just say, hey, could you pick it up in New Jersey or Savannah rather than LA or Long Beach? Conversely, if there's issues with congestion or labor strife on the East Coast, you say, I can move it. And if you're a company that covers all the ports, I think there's some real advantage. I think everybody's starting to look at their partners and say, I want you to be consultative, and that's overused word probably, but I want you to be an expert, not just somebody who picks stuff up and drops it off. I want you to understand all of the challenges that we have right now. We're in the tariff discussions on April 23rd. And I want somebody who can help me guide me through this difficult time. So I could see where a lot of shippers would say, I want my drayage company to grow up. Wrong way to say it. Just become a bit more of a partner.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, again, we talked about critical supply chain pieces, right? Getting those goods, having visibility to them. And again, in COVID, it had a giant spotlight placed right on it. I think we all can remember watching TV, and I still remember the image every morning of where the ships were sitting off in the Pacific and not coming in. Everyone saw it, have visibility to it, and it became a global spotlight. So it's only going to become more of one.
Yeah, and Corey, I would like your thoughts on this. Is I think that was an inflection point for supply chains, especially containerized freight, because I believe at that point we started saying, what are my alternatives? Do I have to go to LA and Long Beach? There seems like the jam there. Can I move it to somewhere else? I think we started to see people asking questions that they probably hadn't asked before. I think I can say this as a former receiver and shipper of that kind of freight. We never moved it. It just came into LA or Long Beach, and it got on a truck, it got on a rail, and it came across this country. And there were options, but we never discussed them. Am I right to say that changed with COVID?
Absolutely. We have BCOs that are using PortPro that actually moved their operation post-COVID out of China and now are saying, actually, we're great right now. We feel good about things in furniture land or in furniture spaces. You're absolutely right. Just look at the number of technologies that popped up with track and trace in ports and rails and things post-COVID that didn't exist. Just the spotlight on it has just gotten huge. Absolutely.
Yep. So post COVID, there's been a slump. Everybody in the trucking space and drayage too. It's not as if the volumes dropped through the floor. They dropped relative to COVID times, but they didn't go really low. But I think we had a lot of people enter the business during COVID, and it takes time for those people to sell a few trucks or some other companies to go out of business, some people to leave the business. And I know we've seen a number of brokers leave. We've seen a lot of carriers leave. And I think bigger carriers might have just shed some trucks. And we're all waiting for that magical time. I think everyone always says, we hit rock bottom, but now we're coming off rock bottom very slowly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, look, on topic, right? Even the way people managed their inventory post COVID changed, right? So we saw, huge volumes in COVID, then some lower volumes, but the largest driver obviously being the capacity was so high that the margins began dropping. And yes, as we thought we hit rock bottom and things turn around, tariff conversation starts. A little more, we can't catch a break sometimes it feels, but we will. It'll turn around. We know that. Yeah.
So if you're a drayage company or BCO or shipper, we have it's good news for some because they get a low price if you're the drayage companies or brokering it or actually own the assets, that's become difficult. We have the tariff uncertainty, but we also have some other issues, especially on the West Coast with government compliance about emissions. I understand there's a lot of smog around LA, Long Beach, so they're trying to address that. And also this AB5, which has made it difficult to be contractors or owner operators. Please talk about those challenges that you see on the West Coast in particular.
Yeah, I think just for some background for folks, right? A lot of drayage companies are working with employee drivers or what you'd call an owner operator leased on model. In California, the AB5 law change was treating leased on owner operators or truly employees, right? We either need to treat them as or actually be employees or truly broker, right? And not have that more relationship. So that's been a large business change for a lot of folks and just more turbulence in an already tough market, right? It's not an easy change to say, I'm going to move to an employee driver model, right? That's not something that's just easy for everyone to accomplish. So you have that. And then you're right. Absolutely. What does emissions and the requirements around that look like from just the cost of your truck fleet, perhaps? specifically in California, LA, like you mentioned, over the next 5, 6, 10 years. But those are two large challenges coming.
Yeah, and I think Los Angeles and Long Beach, they do have a real issue. I'm not saying they don't. I think the challenge with the industry is, I believe we have older trucks often doing drayage because it makes more sense. I don't need a brand new truck to do that. So we have older trucks, more emissions. I've heard some people talk about going to electric for that because it's not long distance. So I guess they can. But are you seeing anybody really move into electric or propane or anything else over there?
No, I've seen it from like the yard trucks, tons of yard trucks for sure. But the power grid I think is still the main concern, right? Being able to support it is tough. What I have seen is a lot of folks that were owner operators, brokers, etc., that they're purchasing a newer truck, so that one that's going to buy them a longer time. If it's, I don't know the exact dates, it was after 2023 or whatever, you're good to 2030. I don't know them exactly, but a lot of people have purchased a new truck actually recently to avoid the electric mandate, perhaps. So we have seen that, but I think the power grid is going to be the wild card there of what's truly
I
required.
get LA and Long Beach saying we do have a smog problem. It's a problem they have that most of the country doesn't have, but you have to be sensitive to it. And again, it's not a bad idea by itself, but the challenge is how do we meet it as an industry? And I think what is California basically doing the wrong thing is AB5. That is a ridiculous law. And by the way, anybody who is connected in California, they get out of it. That it's not their property. It was a ridiculous law and it makes no sense and it should be repealed. But anyway, beyond those challenges, when we talk about drayage, there's and I'm not done a ton of it, but talk about some of the unique requirements regarding drayage compared to over the road stuff.
Sir, the obvious differences being right and over the road, and I'm sure an over the road person don't come after me. But right, you're generally picking something up at a warehouse, driving it a long distance over the road to another warehouse, finding another one, getting back, moving around. In drayage, we're going to get tons of orders are going to come in while they're perhaps still in Asia, right? Then we're going to track them over the water, need to understand when they're available to actually go get them. There's free time. How long can it sit in the terminal before the owner of that cargo starts being charged? So you need to go get it out. You can't just let it sit there forever. They're going to charge you. So maybe your customer doesn't need it until Friday, but Wednesday's the last free day. You should go get it and hold it in your yard for 2 days for them. So now I have storage to handle. I could charge additional fees, get it to them. They need to unload it. I need to get it loaded back into the port by the time that it needs to get loaded onto the boat. So just when it's on the road, obviously very similar. It's the data points that are required to run a truly efficient operation that truly distinguish drayage from what I'd say over the road would be.
Yeah, it sounds like there's more coordination.
You're touching that box 3 times potentially, right? Every time. You could go pick it out of the terminal, let it sit a day, drive it to the customer, let it sit a day, and then go back and get it and bring it back, right? You could potentially touch it 3 distinct different times, even. So managing that whole thing in the most efficient way possible for your network as the shipper or as the broker is, and your fuel costs, et cetera, is very important to the price you can provide your end customer.
So there's definitely more communication, more coordination. You got to deal with, did it clear customs? Is it ready to be picked up? How much time do I have? I think entering into it now, 75% of freight fraud is in cargo theft is in California. I think it's cargo theft, 75% of the is there. It's a huge attack vector. So I think when you bring that container back, it has to be in a secured yard. These thieves are getting very good and very sophisticated. So I think the drayage guys have to be on their game more and more. These are issues I don't think we had to deal with. I'm sure it's always been there, but it seems like it's in the spotlight right now.
Oh yeah. Even a lot of your large electronics providers have tons of new requirements around seals, seal numbers, pictures of seals, right? So again, in the technology space, being able to quickly react to a TV provider now requiring that, right? And now we can meet that demand in 2 days or 2 weeks for our shippers, right? That gives us a leg up for the final to them to serve that BCO.
Yep. So we're talking about technology, and I assume other people need to know this because I didn't know. I said to you before we hit the record button, can't I just do drayage through a regular TMS? And why don't you tell me why that's a problem? Because I already spent a lot of money on a TMS, and now Corey wants me to buy a separate one because we're in the drayage space.
Tons of people do drayage here and there, right? In an over the road TMS. And then you're probably manually maintaining your last free day, your port appointment pickup times, your this, your that. Once you get to a true any amount of scale, count them on one hand, whatever it is, it becomes much more difficult. If I have to do 6 of these in a day, that's information now I'm maintaining. A true drayage TMS is going to automatically pull in all this information, right? Your track and trace info, which we would generally refer to, not just where is that box when we think track and trace and over the road is where is it, but track and trace of where is it, but what is my free time? What is my last free day? What is the cut time? What is the earliest return date? All of that information is automatically pulled into PortPro, and then our AI systems can run behind to tell you, hey, you should go pick this up tomorrow because you're running out of free time. So then where you truly have a drayage system thinking like a drayage system to help you run your business to the best way possible.
So what you're telling me is the traditional TMS, even though some people are, if you dabble in it, you can maybe get by with your TMS and maybe you're using the notes field, but you're definitely missing fields that you should have.
Absolutely. Just if I was going to try to do air freight, right? I'm going to miss a couple a couple things I might need in PortPro for sure. It's a very different business. And yeah, they both have a truck. So sometimes people don't draw those two lines, but they're there.
Corey, we all want to start using AI, and we have all this data inside our transportation management systems. The problem is, I always just call it dirty data. It could be inaccurate, it could be missing. And somebody said to me, I think it was Don Salvucci from Green Screen, said 30% of the data, 35% of the data is incomplete, inaccurate, missing. And I'll just call that all dirty data. AI feeds on data, but you can't give it bad data or you can't give it no data. You mentioned PortPro using AI. You can only use it if it's in the right, if you have all the information in the fields. So if I have this Rubik's Cube of free times and moves, I want AI to be able to help me and say, here you go, Joe, here's your list of moves this week, not have to do it manually. But I can only do that if I have the data inside the right fields.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's so, yeah, our AI is multifold, right? So we're doing exactly that, saying, hey, here's the 5 things you should do today, and here's how you should do them. But yeah, we have to have the data in to be able to make those decisions, right? AI is truly running off of data and making decisions. And so think of it as we have AI to protect the AI, right? If you're missing critical data in there, we're flagging you, we're notifying you, we're helping you, we're keying you into the issues inside your orders or your day so you focus on the right things. So yeah, maybe I didn't know that the last free day was missing. Now, in PortPro, we provide you track and trace info, so it's going to automatically come. But let's say first you don't and you delete it, whatever. It's not there. We actually are going to alert you, hey, your last free day is missing on an import, right? So let's go fix that. So how do we help you, cue you to go fix things to help keep your data clean so that the AI can continue to do what it does and make the best decisions?
Yeah, it's not easy. So one of the things, I know you've been around and you probably experienced the same thing I have. I always say I want a weekly report with KPIs on the basics, right? Just on-time performance, some sort of cost measure, damage, lates. I want to understand that. One of the challenges that I've ran into in the past is everyone who runs a TMS says, "Oh, our TMS will run that for you automatically." And I was like, no, it won't, because we have a whole bunch of fields. It's not the transportation management system that's the problem. It's us not putting the information in. And I know we all want flexibility when we enter in a shipment into a system. I feel like more and more, like you got to make those fields mandatory and make maybe a drop down. So you just go, I'm going to force I'm going to force you to give me the data I want.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, we have the capabilities for that, right? Depending on the templates that you as a shipper say, hey, this is the thing that I need to have to do that. Absolutely.
So one of the things I know, PortPro is a relatively new TMS. When I say new, newer platforms, it's not the old guard. And one of the things we talked about before I hit the record button is, and this is true on the other side of the regular transportation management systems, we start to have acquisitions. And when there's an acquisition, you have this acquisition of the transportation management companies. Now all of a sudden you're going to be forced to leave, and you might say, oh, I got millions of records and 20 years of records in here, and I don't want to make that move. Or if I'm going to make a move, I should look around the whole market. We've seen a lot of acquisitions in this side of the drayage transportation management systems. So we're seeing a lot of people suddenly saying, oh my God, do I have to make this move to the cloud or whatever that looks like? It's usually very established companies who are freaked out because it's not easy to make a move once you've had 20 years of using a system. Please talk about that.
Yeah, you're right. We've seen a ton of acquisitions in the space, whether it's Profit Tools is a well-known tool, Trinium is another well-known tool. Those have both been acquired and changing their platform and their strategy. And maybe if you weren't thinking about moving, now you are thinking about moving. And that is
No choice but move. You're going to move.
yeah. Yeah. Yes. Perhaps you weren't thinking, now you are, and PortPro's in that conversation now. And look, we've done a lot of things too. This is a common thing for us as we've been new and come into and tried to increase our market share. So we even have tools and processes that help us convert typical TMS to PortPro conversions. So we have tons of tools, and we work with you and understand your data and your structure and help you get that set up in PortPro. I would say at this point, 6 years in, that's a great time. That's been very much perfected. We get you time to value and in and moving pretty quick. But yeah, that's certainly something that I think people were nervous or scared of, is change. And that change is coming and being forced in some scenarios, just like you mentioned. But we're here and have had the experience to try to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, it always reminds me experiences I had when I was still in automotive. I worked mostly in engineering, but I was every once in a while, part of something that would bump up against the IT people developing a new system. And someone would say, no, we got to get this we got to get this out of this stupid mainframe. Come on, you got to grow up. I was like, this company is 100 years old. Like, they were the early adopters of mainframes, right? So what there was a lot of happening is when somebody says, you got to move to the cloud, you got to do this, you got to do that. It was like, this is moving the Titanic. You just don't turn it on, wrong example. It's moving a giant boat, and you don't turn that boat very quickly. And I think this is also the challenge with transportation management systems, especially also drayage systems. If I'm adopted early, something that's 30 years ago, and I got a transportation management system, I got 20 years of record, 30 years of records, and I don't want to lose them, and I don't want to disrupt my current business, that move is going to be critically important. And I also look and say, I haven't selected a TMS in 30 years. So the people who picked it are long gone.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think this is happening across the board. And there's the right transportation management system for everybody. I think with your opinion, you're going to say, if you're in the drayage space, you need a specific software. But I would also say, do I want to go with one of the old guard? They're out there. I don't think you would disparage them. But the disadvantage of those is they have kind of legacy costs. They develop their systems on platforms that you would never develop a system on today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, it's even AI, for instance, is going to change by tomorrow. We'll have 15 new things, and we may change how we even translate messages totally. Who knows, right? But you're absolutely right. The large advantage we do have is the modern platform, right? Being able to, like I mentioned early, earlier, new seal requirements have come, and we now need pictures and this and that and an automated email to go off, and we can meet that demand in 2 weeks. Whereas it's much tougher for an on-prem type system to do that. So we absolutely have the leg up of being able to integrate AI platforms and do tons of other things at a speed due to that change. Absolutely.
So I always say there's the cloud natives like you guys that never had an on-premise system. I joke about this, but it's the truth. When I was using mainframes and on-premise systems, there's always some guy who's responsible for that, keeping that beast alive.
Yeah.
And he is the most important person in your business. And it usually takes about 3 weeks for them to realize that. And then they start acting like the unofficial owner of the business.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like,
Um,
hey, can I have? No, you cannot. I thought you were supporting us.
Yeah, in all the acquisitions we would do, sometimes you'd find an old system and absolutely have to figure that out. Always a good
Yeah,
time.
you get introduced. I'd like you to meet God. He runs our on-premise system.
Yeah,
He's
they're always in a closet somewhere, and then not a great setup, but just fine and happy.
yep.
Yeah.
So somebody's if somebody's looking for, somebody's looking for TMS right now, and they say, I need a Drayage TMS. Can I get all the killer apps that I like? So if I like pricing stuff or pricing like the APIs that I connect to, can I connect all of those to PortPro?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We don't do pricing in PortPro right now. We always pricing is like a lot of people's bread and butter, right? So we store your tariffs and stuff, but if you want to run an independent pricing engine, which I think is what you're referring to,
Yeah, like a
and
green screens or something.
have that integrated, absolutely, right? So being able to have those and connect into the APIs, absolutely.
I don't think I necessarily need my TMS to do everything. I just need it to be able to connect to everything. And I think that's it. It's the model that we use now, which is I need the transportation management system to do the certain functions it does really well, and recognize that next year there will be a killer app that we all need. And right now we touched on a little bit of cybersecurity. I think we're going to get more and more of that stuff. That's what I need my tech guys to focus on. But pricing tools, financial tools like factoring. You guys have a built-in tracking system similar to a MacroPoint or a Project 44?
Yeah, so we have our own track and trace platform, our own appointment booking platform, our own like planning optimization, routing optimizations. So we have our own platforms as well. But yeah, I think something like green screens for pricing, that's your probably your bread and butter and your secret sauce of how you're reacting to market changes. Pricing is not, we aren't in that one. But yes, as far as track and trace and those core data components of moving along a drayage business, absolutely.
Yeah, this is eye-opening to me because I didn't realize I never really gave it a thought because I know I was one of those little 3PLs that we had drayage moves, not a ton, we dabbled in it. So we just put those into our TMS. And I think the space has grown in importance. And I think the demands of the supply chains are so much higher that I just feel like if you're going to be successful in this difficult market, you have to be able to grow without headcount, which means you got to do more with less, which usually means a technology investment and the right technology. You can't force fit a traditional TMS into this and have the success you want to have.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And look, there's a bundle of things I think that as we look at the market coming up, we talked about just currently where the margins and where they're at. I think we all know they're very likely going to get tighter in the short term with the tariff discussion, and that may change on a day-to-day basis. But I think everyone's preparing for them to get tighter. And at PortPro, we're saying, hey, look, as your guys' partner, our drayage shippers, our customers, what can we do to help you in the short term? And we've actually, Joe, something we're pretty proud of, turned our focus into what can we do with that. So things like, I'll give you some examples of super manual things in drayage space. You won't be surprised. But like customers say, hey, I have a Google sheet. I put the container numbers on them. You need to update these critical components maybe last free day expected, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? The customer puts that on there. They don't want to use your website to come, their customer portal to come get it. They don't want connected. That's their rule. So you obey by it, right? So we've used AI we said, hey, this is a very common problem in the trade space. Some of the largest customers with the highest volume do this. All of our shippers use do business with one of these customers. We created an AI agent that would automatically go out, read the Excel, automatically map it to columns in PortPro. You can chat with it to confirm the columns, confirm the primary key, confirm your setup, and then it automatically keeps that spreadsheet updated going forward. So if we have one global customer, BCO, like we talked about at the start, that has that requirement that all 600 of our customers have to meet, right? We've now automated something for 600 customers. So we've shifted our focus and are providing some of that stuff actually for free over the next 120 days to try to say, hey guys, we know this is a tough market. Let us help you with a lot of these manual tasks with some of this free AI platforms to help you out. So look, yeah, there's endless scenarios of that. We have people think about like we said, hey, you drop a container at a BCO, they email you back when it's empty and ready to pick up, right? And so typically the shippers will have a single email box where all their customers email and say, hey, it's empty, it's empty. And you have a person sitting there that's job is to watch that email box and mark the containers as empty, right? We've created an AI agent. Literally, you put your email box in, your credentials, it goes out, monitors that email box, marks them as empty, emails the BCO or whoever back and says, hey, empty notification received, marked, done, right? So there's another headcount you can now use to help out doing whatever you're doing in the market. So we have about a couple hundred of these that we're just smashing through and getting them into our customers' hands to help them out with the unknown over the next 120 days.
Yeah, and it's not going to get easier. Nothing ever gets easier. So you just have to use the technology to. It's easier said than done, to do more with less.
Yeah.
When you say do more with less, that's an empty thing to say. But if you make an investment in technology, especially the right technology, yeah, I can do more with less. And I've always said this, when I came to this business, I came from automotive, I was always surprised at the amount of manual entry. And people still to this day, if somebody listening to this podcast says, I get an email, a Google Sheets or Excel sent to me, and I enter it into a TMS every morning when I get there. And I understand why, but we have to figure out what better ways to do that, because that's also, we have a labor shortage. There's fewer children being born. And I keep thinking, if you went off to school and said, I got my degree and now I find myself doing data entry at a little logistics company, you're going to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, or right. And again, like we give people these tools, and as people learn and get better at them and learn to trust them, right? Create your own agents for your own manual tasks to help you. Like go out and every morning and convert that Google Sheet into loads for me, right? So what can we do to help people do that? And you're right. You would be shocked. Yes, there is literally in tons of drayage companies, someone sitting there watching an empty mailbox or whatever and doing that work. There's just tons of opportunity out there to attack. You don't even have to solve the hard problems. It's funny. We were talking about, okay, let's rank the top 50 of these, and we get through 15 of them, right? Google Sheet, empty return, mobile. And then let's not even argue over which one's most important. Just do them all, because they're all massive problems. They're going to provide massive help. Let's just start. And we just took off running and trying to get that into the hands as quick as we can to provide some relief.
I think that's the difference when you buy something when you buy a technology that's made specifically for you and your company. And again, I know there's a lot of people using a over-the-road transportation management system and managing, but if you're going to be successful and you're going to compete with the big boys, you have to have the right tech. So anyway, I'm going to summarize what we talked about the best I can, and then I want to get your final thoughts on the topic. So I'm talking to my friend Corey Abbott. He's the Chief Growth Officer at PortPro, and PortPro specializes in drayage TMS for drayage companies, for the BCOs, for the shippers, and for all the brokers and carriers out there. So drayage is different. It has a lot of challenges. It's got a lot of mom and pop companies out there, But there's some big companies that those mom and pop companies have to compete against. So they're going to have to find a way to compete, because the big boys are going to have the right tech. There's a lot more coordination required in the drayage business, lots more communication, much more demanding in terms of touches and pickups. You don't have to drive 800 miles necessarily, but
Yeah.
you do have to drive a lot of back and forth. We've seen some real challenges in the business with the post-COVID slump. The margins are down. There's uncertainty with the tariffs. That's not going to make things any easier. Particularly with California, there's challenges with government compliance related to emissions, which they're asking us to have newer trucks. I get it, but that's still a financial challenge for a lot of companies. And then we talked about AB5, that silly law that they have in California. We also talked a little bit about there are companies using over-the-road TMSs. It's just a little much of a force fit. If you're doing anything more than dabbling, you need to get a Dray-specific TMS. And we also talked about the challenge that a lot of companies are going through right now is the company might have been using a TMS, a Drayage TMS that got acquired, and suddenly they realize they have to make a move, and they're going to look around and say, hey, maybe I should open it up. If I'm going to have to move, maybe I should make sure I get the right guy. And there is also newer companies that are based on the newer tech platforms like PortPro. Anyway, enough of my... we also talked a little bit about some of these features that you guys have put in specifically to make it easier to get more done, whether it's connecting to Google Sheets or Excel or any of these email addresses that get a lot of empty container information. Anyway, enough of my blather. Put a big old bow on this one. Final thoughts on the topic, Corey.
Yeah, I guess just to wrap it up, Joe, I'd say first off, thanks for having me today. It was a great conversation. I very much appreciate it. Look, we're excited for what we're doing in the drayage space. It's been hugely underserved. It is complicated, though. We're focused on fixing it. So if anyone wants to chat, even just see what we can do or talk about problems you have and general thoughts, I'm here. You can find us at portpro.io, and you can email me at corey@portpro.io. I'm happy to have a discussion, happy to talk, happy to go
I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile.
Awesome. What does AI look like in transportation? How can we use it? Joe, yesterday we used our chat agent, and I went into a customer's account and said, hey, take the potential tariff impact and tell me the top 3 BCOs that are most impacted and what can I do to help them? And it came back with suggestions, right? Tons of exciting things we can do. Happy to share them, talk about them, and go from there.
I love it. So if somebody's listening to the podcast and they want to reach out, I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile, link to your website, and any other links you and your marketing team give me. If someone wants to make the move to PortPro, what does that look like? Are you guys software as a service? Is that a monthly price?
Yeah. So we have a couple different ways depending on size of contract, whether it's quarterly type of payment breakdown. But yeah, software as a service, depending on size, we can implement in 30 days. Some of the large with 40 locations, that's obviously a different story. But yeah, easy to come in. We have tons of experience, like we talked about, from potentially where you're at now to where you want to go to make the PortPro jump, and we can get that done.
I love it. Again, I'll make sure I put a link to your LinkedIn profile, your website, and any other links you and your marketing team give me. Thank you so much for taking the time, Corey.
Alrighty, thank you.
I love what you're doing. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.